All right. Well, I think we are ready to kick it off. So for the last time, welcome to Washington Trails Association's Hike the State 2021. I'm Jill Simmons. I'm the CEO of Washington Trails Association, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm excited to be here tonight because I love this time of year when summer hiking is just around the corner and I'm in the thick of planning all of my outdoor adventures for the next 3 months. I don't know about all of you, but I find myself extra excited to plan outdoor adventures this summer, given all that we've been through recently. Living with a pandemic for more than a year has shown me with force something I already knew, but now really know. And that's how essential time in nature is for my mental and physical well-being, and how opportunities to explore the outdoors help us all to recharge our hearts and our bodies and our minds. I have a 12-year-old son, Sam. He's a happy-go-lucky kid by nature, as you can see in this picture of him jumping for joy on a recent hike over Memorial Day weekend. But the isolation of the pandemic was a real challenge for him. Well, and quite frankly, was a real challenge for us all. And there were so many times when he or I or both of us were feeling low that we would look to trails to pick up our spirits and give us the strength to keep going on with the virtual school, 6th grade, or virtual work, working for a great organization that's all about connecting people and places. Here are 2 of our favorite trails that I wanted to share with you all tonight. Patterson Mountain, with its sweeping views of the Meadow Valley, and the Ranger Hole, which is a small but mighty trail that wanders through inspiring Olympic rainforests to a dramatic view of the Duckabush River. These 2 trails are just teasers of what's in store for you tonight from our staff and team here at Washington Trails Association. I've been hiking in the state for 20 plus years, and I've been at the helm of Washington Trails Association for nearly 5. And yet I always learn about a trail or 2 or 3 that are new to me at our annual Hike the State event. And I hope that's the same for you tonight. We'll get to the hike recommendations in a minute, but I wanted to talk briefly about the work of Washington Trails Association, or WTA, as pretty much everyone calls us. WTA is a nonprofit. We're a community of hikers who come together to share our love of hiking, of trails, and to give back to those trails and places we love. WTA was started more than 50 years ago as a way for hikers to help hikers. And we've grown now, I'm proud to say, to be the largest hiking nonprofit anywhere in the United States. WTA is where Washington's outdoor enthusiasts come to make a difference. Folks that come to WTA because of our mission to mobilize hikers and everyone who loves the outdoors to explore, steward, and champion trails and public lands. Exploring, getting out on the trails is what we're here to talk about tonight. But we also help folks to be stewards, giving back through volunteer trail maintenance, writing trip reports, introducing the next generation to the love of hiking, and a lot more. And we help folks champion, help them raise their voice to protect and preserve the trails and public lands and environment that we all cherish and hold dear about Washington State. I know, we all know, that you and many thousands actually more come to WTA because you love hiking, and like us, you want there to be trails for everyone forever. Trails for Everyone Forever is the guiding vision of WTA. Everything that we do is to ensure that Washington has trails that stand the test of time and can be enjoyed by all. You'll hear more about our work to advance that vision over the next hour. But of course, the main goal of tonight is to introduce you to some of our state's incredible trails, hopefully ones you don't know about. But I also hope you'll walk away inspired to join WTA as members, donors, volunteers, advocates, trip reporters, and more, so that together we can create trails for everyone forever. Okay, let's get the main party started by introducing you to tonight's MC, Jaime Lauke, Chief Impact Officer at WTA. As Chief Impact Officer, Jaime's role is to guide our programs and work across the organization so that they have the biggest impact for hikers and trails. Jaime, take it away.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jill. It's So I am very excited for this event. It is my first Hike the State, and I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's hike recommendations. As Jill mentioned, my name's Jaime. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the Chief Impact Officer here at WTA. So before we get started, we'd like to begin with a brief land acknowledgement. And we respectfully acknowledge that the lands that we will be talking about today are the homelands of Indigenous tribes of the Pacific Northwest, some of whom have reserved treaty rights on those lands. Tribes continue to rely on and share in the management of these lands today. So if you do decide to visit, and we hope you do, please tread gently and treat these places with respect. Now, a bit about how today is going to work, our virtual Hike the State. You're going to hear from 5 hiking experts, all of whom are WTA staff. And they're each going to share 3 hike recommendations. So you'll hear about a variety of trails, from short, low elevation gain hikes to big multi-day backpacking adventures. You'll have a chance to ask questions at the end. So there is a Q&A box. And if you have any question, please use that. We have a staff member on hand who will be answering questions throughout the afternoon or throughout the evening. And then we'll get to a few at the end. And we'll also be including links to in the chat to additional info and resources as we go. While listening in, you can also follow along at our hiking feature, which will be shared in the chat right now. And that will give you more information about each hike. And there will be a link to this webinar on that page, so you can come back to it. And for folks who have to leave early or who aren't able to be here, this is recorded and they'll be on our website. But please stay with us till the end if you can, and you'll find out how you can have a chance to win some WTA swag just by filing a trip report that includes the hashtag Hike the State. So now I'd like to turn it over to Anna Roth, WTA's hiking content manager. And Anna is the brains behind all the rich content on our hiking guide. And she helps manage our volunteer trip reporters who make the guide as extensive and rich as it is. So Anna, over to you.
Thanks, Jaime. Hi, everybody, and thank you for making time to come join us today virtually. I know it's a really beautiful day here in Seattle, so I appreciate you spending a little bit extra time inside looking at another computer screen. I am, like Jaime said, the hiking guide manager at WTA, and I have the pleasure of managing all of the information that's on WTA's hiking guide, trying to provide the most up-to-date information possible. I manage a group of about 40 volunteer writers who help me keep things accurate, from hikes on the Pacific coast all the way over to Spokane and up and down, from the northern border to the southern border, and sometimes a little bit over the borders into Idaho and Oregon. We're slowly taking over. With all of that being said, I'm excited to share with you 3 hikes from all across Washington. So let's get started with my recommendations for this presentation. The first one that I'm going to talk about is the Icicle Divide. Jaime mentioned discussing some multi-day backpacks. I'm a big proponent of lots of miles per day, lots of days per backpacking trip. So this one is a really big, a pretty big hike. You want to allot between 3 to 4 days to do the Icicle Divide, and you're going to have one of the better backpacking trips for folks who really want to do a little bit of route finding, find those high alpine lakes, and really push themselves. I was just kind of reminiscing about some of this trail earlier today and getting really excited for summer, but also thinking like, oh yeah, this is a pretty challenging hike. As difficult as it is, it's really beautiful and lonely out there. And the trail is just really stunning in some places if you take a look at it. I'm not sure how familiar folks are with hikes in other parts of the state, but this particular section really reminds me of Maple Pass off of Highway 20. There's plenty of this type of terrain, but there's also lots of lakes on the Icicle Divide, just like this one. Lakeside camping, of course, can be tricky. Everybody wants to get that beautiful scenic location to wake up to in the morning, but it's not always the best location to abide by leave no trace principles. And it's really important to do that so that the areas that you are recreating in stay nice for the folks who are going to come after you, or maybe for you next time you come visit. So it's really important to brush up on that information. And if you need to, we have lots of how-to resources on our website, WTA.org. Specifically, you can look up how far from the lakeshore you need to be when you pitch a tent when you're backpacking. Of course, there's also incredible views along this trail. As you can see, most of this trail is really high up in that high alpine environment, which is pretty fragile. And as I was saying about leave no trace when it comes to camping at night, it's also really important to stay on trail, especially in fragile alpine areas like this. There are sections of this trail that are almost impossible to follow, but there's tons of resources out there. You've got lots of maps, GPS tracks that you can follow, and tons of other resources like trip reports, so you can see where other people have gone and be sure to stay on trail when you are visiting to preserve the landscape. You can get tips for map reading and where to get started if you need that at WTA.org. We're going to move to our next one, which is the Knothead Loop. This one is a really special one for me. It's also a little bit easier to follow. Don't worry, not all of my hikes are going to be impossible to follow trails. The Knothead Loop is right at the Little Spokane Natural River area, and it's pretty similar to Riverside State Park. You can see how close they are to each other. If you haven't been out to Spokane, these are two really beautiful hikes just to the northwest of the center of town. Excuse me. If we want to switch over to the next slide, the trail is really a beautiful trail. I just want to show it to you. We've got lots of gorgeous wildflowers. WTA actually built 2 reroutes here to help create the loop itself. And it goes through this beautiful open forest of ponderosa pines that provides the perfect combination of sunlight and shade. Obviously, this hiker in this photo really loves it. But you also get these gorgeous views, just like this one from the bluff area of the Little Spokane River. Great overlook right there. Excuse me. I really like this trail particularly because several years ago I had the chance to go over to Spokane and do some work with some of the volunteers who live out there. And after day 3 of me doing pretty computer-based work, one of the volunteers said, "I'm sick of you working in front of a computer. You need to come hiking with me." And he took me out here and showed me all of the work that WTA crews had done. He was a volunteer crew leader and just gave me the whole rundown of it. And I just really appreciated it. It was a wonderful day. And it was fantastic to spend some time out there with someone who had such a close personal connection to the trail. The last hike I want to talk about also has some special significance to me, but it's much closer and maybe a little bit closer to home for folks. This one's in Seattle and it's pretty close to where I live. I did select this one. It's a little bit more of a route than a true hike because it laces together 3 different parks in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. But this one's been really forefront in my mind because I did it a lot in lockdown last year. I was able to walk to Volunteer Park and come right down the stairs through Interlochen and into the Washington Park Arboretum. As you could maybe tell from the Icicle Divide recommendation, I really like a lot of elevation gain. I like getting a workout on my hikes. And so the stairs really worked for me. They were a great way for me to burn off some nervous energy last year. And I really liked this one as well because you could get to it from a variety of ways. So in the feature that's linked in the chat, you'll see it's described from Volunteer Park going down into the Washington Park Arboretum, but there's a variety of ways you can get into it. You can come to it from Interlochen, you can come to it from Washington Park. And there's plenty of opportunities to see lots of nature really up close. This was a fantastic photo that one of our trip reporters submitted to us. If you needed any other reason to check trip reports, I would say the photography in some of them is certainly a compelling one. There's also a lot of other versions you can do coming in from Washington Park, coming around on the Foster Island, Marsh Island loop, which I did do one time last year. And the one warning I would have for folks is that Marsh Island lives up to its name and can be extremely muddy. I did fall into a puddle up to my knee, but it was a good adventure. And while we were all kind of hunkering down at home, It was a fun way to spend some time outside. Sorry about my cat visiting. That's about all I've got. And I really appreciate everybody's time once again for spending some time inside. I'm going to hand it back to Jaime.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Anna, and really wonderful, wonderful hikes you selected. In particular, the hike that you mentioned last, the Volunteer Park to Washington Park Loop, is a great example of an urban trail that offers urban residents easy access to the health benefits of time in nature. And I just want to point out, we have a campaign, the Trail Next Door, which works to increase access to urban trails and green spaces across the state, and focuses on communities that have little to no access to nature. And just one data point, last year, we added more than 100 hiking guide entries for urban trails in a year when urban hiking was even more crucial to our well-being than ever before. So, if you have a trail that you love in your neck of the woods or in your neighborhood, please write a trip report. We are trying to get more urban trails up on our hiking guide. So next up, I would like to introduce Casey Darso, our Youth Trail Program Coordinator. Casey is in the trenches, sometimes literally, helping to introduce youth to the fun of trail work and helping cultivate the next generation of trail champions. So Casey, over to you for your hike recommendations.
Thanks, Jaime. Hey folks, I'm Casey, they, them, speaking from Duwamish land. And as the Youth Trail Program Coordinator, I get the awesome job of organizing and leading volunteer trail maintenance events for kids ages 10 and up. I could talk about why I love my job all day, but I'm here tonight to share with you 3 hikes that are special to me. So let's get on to that. The first trail I'm so excited to share with you is Barclay Lake, just west of Stevens Pass. At 4.5 miles round trip, it makes for a really great out and back day hike or an entry-level overnighter. I've seen many small humans carried in packs or with their own school bags on the way up. So the trail itself follows a creek up to the quiet lake, which sports this impressive view of Bering Mountain. And it has a few established camping spots near the shore. Along the way, you pass through a shaded older growth forest that's just rife with ferns and mushrooms and interesting boulders with like cedar roots all intertwined in them. And so after the log bridge that's along this stretch, you cross through an old rock slide surrounded by deciduous trees. They look just amazing in the fall. And in my opinion, this combination of forest types and features just can't be beat. I was introduced to Barclay Lake when I was leading a work party for teens from Seattle Parks Outdoor Opportunities program. So we replaced a turnpike that had actually been put in 25 years earlier by WTA volunteers when the trail maintenance program started. So Barclay was one of the very first trails that WTA worked on, and we continue to maintain it now as part of our Trails Rebooted campaign. My personal passion for getting kids outdoors and expanding access for everyone is driven by my own connection to wild places. Time on trail has been essential for me in realizing and accepting my queer, trans, and non-binary identity. For me, it's the place where gender isn't, where I can just be myself. I feel calm and centered and confident when I'm immersed outdoors, just connected to everything. I'm whole. And it was on a backpacking trip actually to Stehekin with my grad school cohort that I began using they, them pronouns and first identified as trans. So it's one of the reasons that makes this trail really special to me. But it also is just a stunning hike through some of the best landscapes and views that the North Cascades has to offer. Stehekin is this remote little village on the north end of Lake Chelan, and there are no roads to get there. So your only access is by a private plane, a boat all the way across the lake, or my preferred method, hiking. And you've got a lot of route options to get into Stehekin, but my favorite starts at the Bridge Creek trailhead that's just off of Highway 20. Since the Bridge Creek Bridge is currently washed out, make the climb up McAllister Pass. It's well worth it for the wildflowers right in your face and the epic mountain ranges in the distance. And if you follow Rainbow Creek Trail, It'll take you through old burns at various stages of recovery and these fields of vibrant fireweed. You'll know you're nearly there when you catch a glimpse of Lake Chelan just before heading into town. Stehekin is home to about 80 year-round residents, a one-room schoolhouse, and of course, the Stehekin Pastry Company. So definitely don't forget to grab your freshly baked cinnamon roll because the 20 miles it takes to get here make it extra delicious. Take Park Creek Pass on your way out. It's another hard climb, but it puts you eye to eye with glaciers, pika, and marmots. And as you head down the other side, it is clear you are on the west side of the Cascades as you descend all the way down to your exit point at Colonial Creek Campground. Lush green forests blanketed in moss, a huge field of delicious alpine blueberries, and a super brushy overgrown section where you might lose the trail for a little bit like I did if you're not careful. All of these attest to the fact that you are definitely on the wet side of the range on this part of the hike. So, keep your rain jacket and your pack cover handy as well. Your journey is almost over when you hear Thunder Creek roaring along in all of its glacial flower-filled turquoise glory. Over these 55 miles, the last time I did this hike, I connected with classmates, I got to know myself, and during one unfortunate pee stop, I learned what a bald-faced hornet was, as a friend and I kicked up a nest and got several of them in our pants. So if this happens to you, strip off your layers and get away from that area. I shouted the whole time I was fleeing to let everybody else know to stay away, from the wasps there. But anyway, once things have settled down, you can go back for your clothes and your dignity and then have a really great story to tell 300 strangers next time you need one of those. If you're looking for a little less adventure, I highly recommend Point Defiance Park in Tacoma for an easy city escape. Here, you'll find 5 miles of trail winding through cedar and sword fern forest, offering cliffside views of the Narrows Bridge and the Olympic Mountains framed by madrona trees. There are rose and rhododendron gardens to explore, a living history museum, an off-leash dog park, and plenty of wildlife to spot, even outside the zoo and aquarium. For folks who prefer to stay inside the car while they hike, the peaceful scenery and old growth trees can be enjoyed through the windshield as you motor around the loop known as 5 Mile Drive. Point Defiance Park is an excellent trail to have next door when you just need a break from the hustle and bustle. So whether you're looking for a multi-day excursion, a closer in adventure, or a quiet green space to take a breather in the city, WTA's got you covered. From where to go, to best practices while you're there, to how to help keep these places open and accessible for all, we've got all the resources you need. And back to Jaime for more on that.
Excellent, Casey. Thank you so much. I've got to say, you piqued my interest at the wild blueberries and the cinnamon roll, but the hornets in the pants, not exactly, not as exciting. So one of the things that Casey mentioned, which I just really want to underscore, is that one of the things that we're really passionate about here at WTA is helping make the outdoors a welcoming and inclusive space for all. We really want to share that love of the outdoors with everybody. And our Trails for Everyone campaign really helps to break down those barriers to accessing the outdoors by creating opportunities to get new hikers out on trail, helping expand the definition of who is a hiker and what is a hike, and really trying to make our state's hiking community more welcoming and inclusive. We do that also by hosting more than 1,000 trail work parties statewide each year. And that includes our Intro to Trail work party, our shared identity work parties, and really opportunities to give thousands of volunteers a range of chances to give back to trails. We have youth and family work parties, which is where you'll find Casey often, crew leading for groups and families across the Puget Sound. And this past year, we actually piloted our first ever leadership and inclusion crew, which was designed to build leadership and technical skills for folks from historically underrepresented communities in the outdoor industry. So if you're interested, there is no experience necessary to try trail work. You can find a link in the chat that Dean will post. to explore upcoming volunteer opportunities. And it really is a lot of fun. You see how much work goes into maintaining trails, but also just how much fun it is to get out there. So next up, I'd like to introduce Leslie Cox, our office manager. Leslie, if you don't already know her, is our all-star pinch hitter here at WTA. She keeps our office organized, our teams running smoothly, and she also bakes a mean banana bread. So Leslie, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jaime. Well, welcome to this evening. Since the 90s, I've been a WTA member and volunteer. And in 2015, I did become the office manager. So if you call for hiking information, I will try my best to answer your questions. My secret is the WTA website and your trip reports. I love the mountains, so I moved to Washington many years ago. I like cloudy and cool, so I live in Western Washington. And I will walk a path of any distance from a really nice, sweet, short Caboto Garden stroll to the length of California on the PCT. But as a slow hiker and a shutterbug to boot, I savor the journey because I might not make the destination. Two of my recommendations would be a great introduction to family or friends who do not hike. My third and last trail, Notch Pass, is a bit longer, more strenuous, definitely not everyone's cup of tea, and is part of my personal history. My first hike is Umatilla Rock via Monument Coulee, Hike the West in Eastern Washington. This is a gentle 5-mile loop on Highway 17 north of Moses Lake in the heart of Washington. In this region, high tableland is covered in sagebrush or fields irrigated by the Columbia River contained by the Grand Coulee Dam. Coulees in Washington are broad valley floors surrounded by cliffs, often indicating areas of drainage, whether they be active or ancient. Despite the size of coulees, from the tabletop, the land to the horizon can appear unbroken. So don't be surprised if a crop duster pops out of the ground like a gopher out of a hole. That happened to me. Monument Coulee and the marooned, spiny-edged Umatilla Rock comprise Sun Lakes Dry Falls State Park. On this desert trail, you are walking through land devastated by water. During the last ice age, the cataclysmic Missoula floods coursed through much of Washington and gouged and scoured the basaltic landscape, creating mammoth dry falls, 4 times the size of today's Niagara Falls. If you want a view, take a spur scramble to the cleft of Umatilla Rock, but if you're not up for the scramble, do not miss the stunning Highway 17 viewpoint and its wonderful visitor center. My next trail is Garfield Ledges via the Taylor River Connector. This is near, but not on the beaten path. The trail is in the Snoqualmie region near North Bend and is 2.2 miles round trip and with a gain of about 830 feet. For a half-day hike, I recommend Garfield Ledges in the Middle Fork Snoqualmie Valley almost any day of the year. Swaths of big leaf maples add seasonal color contrast to the evergreens on the valley floor, and snow defines the surrounding peaks for many months of the year. So if you want to add more color, you should take your hike at sunrise or sunset. Personally, I always wait for the North Bend Bakery to open to buy myself a Bigfoot cookie to go. It's hard to believe, but this trail was only finished in 2019. It is part of a grand reimagining of the valley, once notorious for illegal dumping and worse. Due to the dedicated efforts of a coalition of outdoor partners and the many members supporting them, this valley was reclaimed. Garfield Ledges is definitely the low-key alternative to Mount Si and Rattlesnake Ledge. To avoid a tank-sized pothole on the road by the bridge, park at the Middle Fork Trailhead lot instead and take the Taylor River Connector, also known as the Middle Fork Connector, for a walk with river and mountain views, Flintstone furniture, and a pothole bypass by foot. My last trail is Notch Pass. This is history beneath your feet. The trail is near Quilcene, Washington, on the Hood Canal side of the Olympic Peninsula, and is 8.5 miles round trip with a healthy 2,700 foot gain. When you need to get from A to B, you go through Notch Pass. Native village groups wintering on Hood Canal's Dabob Bay would often use this direct route to the interior of the Olympics with the approach of summer. With Native people displaced, the trail disappeared beneath decades of logging and a fire. In the 2000s, volunteers worked years to restore a segment of this route, and I was one of them, spending days on the trail as a volunteer crew leader nicknamed Mosquito. Notch Pass is the kind of trail that could have been a candidate for our campaign, Lost Trails Found, had it existed back then. The trail goes through second growth forest to the pass, then travels through spooky dog hair, which is a result of decades old clear cutting, and finally descends through canopies of alders, rhododendrons, and cedars to end at the inviting Big Quilcene River. For year-round access, start at narrow potholed Forest Service Road 10. The trail was rebuilt, but alas, not the road. Water sources are few on the east side, as the Clouds Clip Notch Pass and the Front Range it belongs to, but there's plenty of water sources and hence plenty of volunteer bridges on the west side. The trail terminates at Lower Big Quilcene Trail and crosses the river at a bridge, which is often seen in postcards. On the left, if you do cross the bridge, you will find camping at Bark Shanty, or if you turn right, you will travel upstream to Marmot Pass, the Buckhorn Wilderness, and beyond. Thank you for listening to these choices, and I really hope you enjoy these trails.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Leslie. And in fact, the trail at Garfield Ledges that Leslie talked about is one, it's an excellent example of an alternate trail to a more popular one nearby. And it's actually one that Jill and I did this past Friday. And I will tell you, the views from the end are spectacular. So one way that WTA is working to relieve pressure on popular trails is through our Trails Rebooted campaign, which really protects and restores iconic and popular trails, but also develops new ones that can provide hikers with great alternatives. Leslie also mentioned our Lost Trails Found campaign, which is focused on putting backcountry trails back on the map. Years of underfunding and increasingly destructive fire seasons have left miles of wilderness access trails unmaintained and unsafe. And WTA is excited that we've actually employed our very own professional trail maintenance crew for the first time this year to work on those hard to reach and at-risk trails. So with your support, we can help keep getting folks out into the backcountry and keep maintaining access to those backcountry areas. So up next, I'd like to introduce Stasia Honold, our Southwest Regional Trails Manager. And when Stasia's not doing kayak by bike adventures on the Willamette River, she leads trail work and volunteer opportunities from our Southwest field office. So Stasia, over to you.
Awesome, thanks Jaime. Like Jaime said, my name is Stasia Honold. I use she, her pronouns. And I'm the Southwest Regional Coordinator, which means that I coordinate all the trail work that happens down in Southwest Washington. So I get to not only hike, but do trail work on an awful lot of trails in Southwest Washington. And I'm super excited to share 3 of my favorites with you today. I'm going to talk about them in order of difficulty, and I will encourage you to look at them on our website, WTA.org. Especially because some of them might have some other cool things you can do if you poke around at maps. So I'll give you some ideas, but I will encourage you to look at our website and plan your own adventure. So my first hike is a little itty bitty spot called St. Cloud. It is in the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area. And it's one of only a few places where you can actually access the shores of the Columbia River, which if you're not familiar with is the river between Washington and Oregon. It's a really nice spot to stop on your way to or from other more popular and more populous hikes in the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area. If you've heard of Dog Mountain or Cape Horn, those hikes tend to be very full of people. So if you need a break, St. Cloud is a really nice spot to stop. There are a few reasons why I love this place. First of all, it is accessible. So it's a 1 mile loop. It's graded, it's graveled, it's flat. It's not as pristinely flat or as graveled as it was when it was first built, but it is still accessible. So if you or someone in your hiking party has a mobility device or only about a mile's worth of energy, it's a really nice pick. I hiked it in crutches earlier this year when I sprained my foot, so it's definitely hikeable in crutches. Also, I should mention there are restrooms available there and really easy to get to picnic tables with really nice views. This is a picture of my supervisor's daughter when she was really little. And it's under some apple orchards. So if you're there in the fall, there's a whole bunch of free apples that are delicious that you can eat. It's part of a network of protected wetlands along the Columbia River. So there's great birds and wildlife basically any season you're there. And it's just a great spot to stop and stretch your legs, set your kids loose, set your dog loose. It's also not far down Highway 14 from another accessible loop hike, which is called Sam's Walker. So if you're into 2 little hikes with kids, this is a really nice spot for you. And even though I don't have kids, I stop here frequently whenever I'm in the area. I love St. Cloud. Okay, second pick. Slideshow's getting ahead of me here. The second hike is more of a destination hike than just a little side stop. And it's called Ledbetter Point. But before I tell you about it, I want you to close your eyes, or not if you're driving. I saw someone in the chat driving, but imagine this with me, humor me. Imagine starting at a beautiful bay, and then you walk up the bay and you turn and you hike through a coastal forest. It looks kind of like this next slide. And then you emerge at the Pacific Ocean on your very own private beach that stretches for miles and miles and miles. That's basically what Ledbetter Point is like, Ledbetter Point State Park. It's on the northern tip of the Long Beach Peninsula, which is the very southwest part of Washington, kind of where it runs into Oregon, on the very corner. And the hike starts at the very northern tip. It starts at Willapa Bay, and there are several options possible there. My favorite is to hike up the bay across the peninsula to the ocean. And the shortest way to do that is about 3.2 miles round trip. But in the same area, you can hike for more than 10 miles on trails if you want, doing various loops. And of course, once you get to the beach, the Pacific Ocean side, you can hike to your heart's content on the beach. It's a really nice spot for a picnic. A few reasons why it's great. First and foremost for me is its solitude. It's maybe just because it's on the tip of that peninsula, you have to go all the way down to the bottom corner of Washington. Very rarely are there many people there. I've hardly ever run into anyone else. And I love the feeling of having my own beach to wander. So that's one reason I love it. Second thing, there are awesome animals there. There are harbor seals that bob around in the Pacific Ocean. Whales migrate past in season, although I've never seen them. And the whole peninsula is part of the Pacific Flyway and also has a bunch of different habitats. So if you are a bird nerd like me, you could spend 1,000,000 hours with your binoculars out there, just scoping things. And last thing is you can make a whole weekend out of it. If you're far away and you don't want to just drive 1,000,000 hours to go for one hike, at the southern tip of the Long Beach Peninsula, there is another state park called Cape Disappointment, and that has cabins, camping, yurts, so you can stay there. And what I love to do for the weekend is head out there with my bike and I camp, and then I bike on, there's a whole bunch of bike paths. I go out to dinner at some of the restaurants on the peninsula. If it's summer, I might go to the farmer's market. It's super fun, a really nice weekend adventure. Although beware, seasonally, especially if you're going to cross the peninsula, it is very wet, like up to your knees wet. So be prepared to either have big rubber boots or get totally wet or turn around, whatever your preference is. Okay, last hike. This one is if you're looking for more of a remote backcountry adventure or a long day trip, or if you're into remote trail running, this is a fantastic trail run. It's near Mount Rainier, but they're without the permits, without the crowds. And I'm going to tell you about a specific hike here, but especially with this one, I very much recommend doing some research and picking your own adventure because there's a lot of options in this area. So the general area I'm talking about is the William O. Douglas Wilderness. And the specific hike I love is to Twin Sisters. It's a 15.7 mile loop to Twin Sisters Lake and over Tumac Mountain. And you can do this from a few trailheads, but from the Soda Springs trailhead is the one I'm talking about with 15.7 miles. It's a really long day hike, or again, an amazing trail run. I don't know if there are any trail runners out here, but sometimes you're on a trail run and there's not really much running. But this is a very imminently runnable hike or run. And I don't know if I mentioned that trail running is how I sprained my foot and why I was on crutches at St. Cloud earlier this year. It's also really sweet overnight if you're into that. Sorry, I'm just going to throw a bunch of options at you. So things to love about this hike or trail run or overnight. are a million alpine lakes. There's like an embarrassment of lakes. This is Twin Sisters Lake, which is one of the big destinations. But if you look at a map, there are tons of lakes. It's really hard to hike for more than an hour without running into another one. If you go swimming in them, please beware of chemicals that you might have on your skin, like bug spray or sunscreen. And please be really careful to not introduce chemicals into these lakes because they are, like Anna was saying earlier, fragile alpine environments. Another thing I love is there's great views of Mount Rainier and the Goat Rocks. Sometimes you have to work a little bit to find them. I love this picture. It's kind of a joke because Mount Rainier is hiding back there behind all the trees. But if you go just a little bit to the side, you actually have a really nice view of it. This is from the top of Tumac Mountain, which is well worth the elevation gain. And here's another great view of Mount Rainier. You just got all these sneak attack views all the time. And the last thing I love about this hike, or this area in general, actually, is that there, like I said, a million options possible. I mentioned the 15.7 mile loop to Twin Sisters Lake and the top of Tumac Mountain. But this is a wilderness area where there's actually an uncharacteristic number of trails that cross it. So if you look at a map, you can make a whole bunch of different loop options depending on your energy level, your amount of psych, how long you want to be out. So that's why I really recommend looking at a map and kind of poking around trip reports on our website, figuring out what works best for you. One word to the wise is because of all those lakes I mentioned, there are many mosquitoes early in the season. So this is a really good hike for a late season adventure. So those are my 3 recommendations. If you're excited about any of them, I encourage you to do more research at WTA.org. And if you end up going on any of them, either for a short adventure at St. Cloud or a multi-day trip in the William O. Douglas, I would love to see it in a trip report. And back to you, Jaime.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Stasia. Really wonderful pics. And I really love those pictures of the beach at Ledbetter, and makes me really want to get out to the ocean. I've been out for a while. So often folks who are new to WTA have a little bit of a confusion about, who we are and what we do, and may not understand that we are a nonprofit supported by members across the state. So my next guest, special guest, is Matt Martinez, a senior producer of the On Being Project and a longstanding member of WTA's board of directors. And he'll explain a bit more. And Matt, are you on?
I am on. Hello.
Excellent.
It's good to
Over to
see
you.
you. Thank you so much. As Jaime said, Matt Martinez, I use he, him pronouns, and I'm so excited to be here with everybody today. So many amazing hikes being shared here. I'm especially glad to see that Point Defiance was highlighted right here in my backyard in Tacoma. And, WTA is going to keep us busy for months on end with all of these hikes, and is going to help you get out on trail every single month. And we know, talking to so many of you, that we are helping you get out on trail. And I'm here to ask you to consider giving back by joining the WTA community as a monthly contributor. So when you become a member by making a financial contribution to WTA, you're supporting all of the work that you've heard about today. You support the trail maintenance, advocacy, education, and everything else that we do to protect and preserve Washington's trails. So I am a monthly contributor myself, and it makes supporting the work so easy. All I did was submit my information on WTA's donation page, and I've never really had to think about it again. And so I get to rest easy knowing that I'm supporting a cause that I care so much about, without any of the hassle of planning on, how I'm going to make donations. It really is akin to a Netflix subscription or a Spotify, whatever it is that you do monthly. It's just like that, really easy to do. So go to WTA.org/donate. We're going to provide a link in the chat, and you can just go ahead and click on that. And you'll see a prompt asking how often you would like to donate. Click the box under it and select monthly. And we have a really cool special incentive for anyone attending this webinar, very exclusive for this webinar. If you become a monthly contributor today, or increase your monthly contribution if you're already a member, you get a free WTA branded buff. And I have one of these. It's really cool, and it's super versatile, especially when I need another layer for my head because no hair. And it shows everybody on the trail that I am a big supporter of WTA. So please join me in becoming a monthly giver of any amount or increase your monthly contribution, and you get that WTA buff. Only good till midnight, this offer. So please become a member right now and help me support this organization that supports hikers and everybody else who wants to get out on trail. There is just no downside to this as far as I'm concerned. We're building a future where everyone who seeks nature's healing can quickly find themselves outdoors. It truly is an organization that is working for trails for everyone forever. So thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you so much for becoming a member of WTA.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you for joining us. And as Matt mentioned, the buffs are quite cool. I have one as well. We tried, I don't know if you'll be able to see this. It kind of blurs out, but really great colors, and they've got our logo on them. So anyway, consider signing up and getting one. So last but not least, certainly not least, I'd like to introduce Allie Tripp, our Strategic Initiatives Manager. And Allie works with all of our program teams to connect the work they do to our strategic campaigns, the ones that I've been mentioning kind of throughout this program. This summer, she's also managing our Trail Mix newsletter, which offers even more hike recommendations and insider WTA knowledge to WTA's monthly donors. So it's another nice perk if you sign up for monthly donations. So Allie, over to you.
Thanks, Jaime. I think you'll just have to put that buff on before we go back to you next time, and then you can really demonstrate all its versatility. So hi, everybody. I'm Allie Tripp, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm super excited to be here. I've been an attendee at Hike the State for the last 6 years that I've worked at WTA, and it's my favorite event that we put on. So I'm honored to be a presenter this year. And as I was writing up these hikes, I realized that I was lucky enough to actually do all of them over the last year with my sister. And my sister, I think she's on here right now, and I'm going to embarrass her a little bit because she's just as big of a WTA fan as I am, which is impressive since she's not employed by them. But ever since her first hike in Washington, when she moved here about 4 years ago, I wanted to take her on a really special one-night backpacking trip to introduce her to the wonders of Washington. But she didn't have her hiking boots. They were still in storage. So she borrowed an old pair of mine, but you all know what it's like when you wear a pair of shoes that doesn't quite fit quite right. And so she packed an extra pair of sneakers just in case something went wrong. Very responsible, always plan ahead. And then as we were on our way back down from the hike, her toes started to cramp up. So she put on those other sneakers and tied my hiking boots to the back of the backpack because it was a pretty stuffed bag. And we got back to our car. We felt so accomplished. She was thrilled. She, I'm sure, became a WTA member right away, something like that. But the next day, I sat down to write my trip report for our experience. And I saw a trip report from the day before of someone who reported finding a size 8.5 orange Merrell on the trail. And I was like, what do you know? That's my hiking boot size. So I called my sister and I was like, hey, you have both of my boots still, right? And she was like, of course I do. And like ran back to check. And it turns out one had fallen off in our hike down. But this other hiking guide user and trip reporter picked it up, a good leave no trace practice. And we were able to communicate with them. And they lived just 2 miles from where I was living in Seattle. So it was a pretty amazing connection. And never underestimate the value of WTA's trip reports. Not only do they help us decide, where to go hiking, they help us decide where to do trail maintenance along with our land manager partners. And occasionally you can find lost boots as well. But here are my hiking recommendations. The first one, the most recent hike that we did together actually, was Fort Erie State Park. And this state park is on Whidbey Island, and it's the ideal destination if you want to drive up to a car campsite and not get in your car for another 2 to 3 days. When I've done spring hikes on those rare or not so rare lately, 60-degree spring days, I've headed many times to Evie's Landing, which is just south of Fort Evie State Park. But I'm here to say that I think Fort Evie is a great alternative and has even more to offer. So the park has over 25 miles of multi-use trails that you can turn into a variety of loops. It's a great place actually to practice your own loop making and map reading because there are a lot of options. If you stayed the whole weekend, unless you're a marathon runner, I guess, it's unlikely that you would have to walk the same trail twice, except probably to the restroom. But whatever you do, don't miss the Bluff Trail. And if you're going out just for the day, plan to spend a lot of your time there. We ended up choosing our routes through the park by following the Bluff Trail in the morning and in the evenings, and then exploring the more forested trails in the hottest parts of the afternoon. When I was camping there this spring with my mom and sister, we were actually treated to the sighting of a gray whale feeding offshore just before sunset. So if you have binoculars, bring them. You never know what kind of marine wildlife you might be able to spot. So next up is actually another state park. Apparently during the last year and a half, I've become a real state park fan. All these local adventures that I hadn't been able to seek out before were really the only option. So Dash Point State Park is an incredible place if you really want to smell the ocean or go for a walk in the woods and feel like you're away from all the hustle and bustle of the population centers around Puget Sound, but you don't have a lot of time to travel or only have a few hours for your adventure. The park is just north of Tacoma, and it has 11 miles of hiking trails and 8 miles of biking trails, in addition to 140 campsites. There's also more than 3,300 feet of saltwater shoreline, which makes for some really, again, incredible marine wildlife watching. The last time I was there, we started and ended our hike at the beach. And we hiked up both the Old Boundary Trail and the East Rim Trail to check out the bird viewing platforms, which this is a photo coming down from one of them. But again, this shoreline is just like the place to be. You see tons of families wandering around. We spotted a group of harbor porpoises from the shore and watched osprey and bald eagles fishing. It's a really wonderful escape from the city. And again, Stacia and I are both big bird nerds, lots of great birds at Dash Point State Park. So my third and final hike for you today is Noble Knob via Dalles Ridge. If you're looking for an alternative to some of the really scenic and popular routes inside Mount Rainier National Park, this is an incredible alternative. It's just outside of the park in the Snoquera region, which is northeast of the national park off of Highway 410. The wildflowers are incredible this time of year, as you can see in this photo. And this hike is just around 5 miles round trip and just under 1,000 feet of elevation gain. So it's a great hike for a lot of people. You can make it a whole day if you want to take your time. You can also probably crush it and do it in half a day. It's a great hike for out-of-town visitors to get a sense for the landscape here. There are beautiful views from the 360-degree summit, but one of the other really interesting pieces is you have the opportunity of hiking through a burn area, and you can marvel at witnessing Mother Nature's recovery from the fire in 2017. It was the Norse Peak fire. As you can see in this photo, that's me in the center there with some of my colleagues. WTA has been doing trail work on this trail as far back as 1998. But we made a really significant jump in our efforts to support the fire recovery starting in 2019. So if you're looking for a fun work party opportunity, this is a super scenic one. We'll be back out there this summer again. And then also, if you're looking to spend a little bit more time in the area, since I talked about camping in my other recommendations, there's a lot of great dispersed camping in the Snoquera area, along with some U.S. Forest Service hosted sites like the Dalles right off of Highway 410. But if you are interested in learning more about dispersed camping or other how-tos, I definitely recommend checking out WTA's how-to guides on the subject. And now, hopefully, happy hiking to all of you. And back to you, Jaime. I hope you are wearing your buff now. Yeah.
I am indeed. I am not one to turn down a challenge. Thank you, Allie. So I am porting the WTA branded buff. Hopefully you can see our logo. And I assure you it is very soft and warm and my neck feels very protected. So as Allie mentioned in her talk, she mentioned dispersed camping near Noble Knob in Snoquera. If dispersed camping is a new activity for you, please check out WTA's how-to article on the topic. We have our Trail Smarts resources cover everything from right-of-way on trail to where to set up your tent to how to poop in the woods. So really a lot of great resources. Dean just put the link in our chat. And if you haven't already checked out our Trail Smarts program, please check it out. We also just launched a Trail Smarts Bootcamp email series. It's entirely free, and it's a great way to refresh your skills before a summer full of hiking. So if you'd like that in your inbox, follow the link and you can sign up for that. So we only have a few minutes left. We're going to just do a brief Q&A. If you have any questions on the top of your mind that you haven't already asked, feel free to put them in the chat now. And our colleague Jesse teed up a few. I'll just read one right now. On the Icicle Divide Trail, are reservations needed? This is a question by Jay Clinton, and I believe Anna, you might be the best position to answer that.
Yeah, hey, that was a great question. It's not, it's in the Alpine Lakes Wilderness, but it is an area that's close to Stevens Pass and Leavenworth. And so on either end of the traverse, you may end up having to find a campsite with other folks. My best recommendation for people who want to do this is start early, but it's not a reservation area.
Excellent, good to know. There was another question from Vicky. Do we have Garmin GPX routes available for download for these hikes? Anna, I think this one's another one for you.
Yeah, hey, thank you for that question. We don't have GPX tracks, but we do encourage folks to, grab a map if you can. All of our hiking guide entries include links to Green Trails maps that you can purchase. That'll help you find your way. And some of them, not the Icicle Divide one, but some of the other hikes on our site also include planning maps that were put together by the volunteer crew that I lead. And they're just small 8.5 by 11 maps that sort of show the route that you would need to hike. But I do really strongly recommend getting Green Trails maps. They've been a great partner of WTA, and they have really, really thoroughly researched information that they update on a regular basis as well.
Great. And before you go, Anna, I'm just curious, I saw the question from Sharon about how to use the WTA app. Do you want to say just a quick overview of that?
Yeah, totally. The WTA app is called WTA Trailblazer, and you can download it out of the Play Store or the App Store. The thing that I personally like using the WTA app for the best is the Hikes Near Me feature, which uses your phone's location to tell you other hikes in the area. And especially in the last year, when we've been recommending that people kind of go out with a plan A or plan B, even a plan C, when you might come to a crowded parking lot, that has been really, really helpful. You can access hiking guide information on the app. You can access hiking information that you've saved to your My Backpack when you're offline in the app, which is really great. But it is worth emphasizing that if you want to be able to get online information, you're going to have to save the hike into your My Backpack. So it's really important to make an account on our website and then save any hike you're interested in doing in order to do that. You can also access trip reports and then find the full driving directions and everything.
Excellent. And I have certainly used the app both offline and for the Hike Near Me features, and really, really recommend them. So I think we're about out of time. And I just want to thank everybody for joining us. I know it was a beautiful day outside, so thanks for choosing to spend an hour on Zoom with all of us at WTA. I hope you are leaving today as inspired as I am to get out and hike one of these awesome trails. And as awesome as the longer trails like Icicle Divide and Notch Pass sound, I'll admit I have a 3-month-old daughter who just joined our family. And so I'm looking for shorter, easier hikes to take her on. And Barkley Lake really just sounded a gentle hike with mixed forest and great views. Sounded like exactly what I'm looking for these days. So I'm excited to check that one out. And just to reiterate before we close, there's a lot of ways you can get involved with WTA and support us. First and foremost, we want you to just get outside and tell us about it. You know, write a trip report after your next hike. You can write it on the Trailblazer app or on your My Backpack account. And anyone who uses the Hike the State hashtag in a trip report between now and the 4th of July will be entered to win a WTA prize pack. So you will have a chance to get some WTA swag if you use hashtag Hike the State. We'll announce the winners after the 4th of July. You can also sign up for a WTA work party. The link is in the chat and we'll share it again. Or sign up for our Trail Smarts email series and get a lot of great information about hiking. And then of course, as we've mentioned, as Matt mentioned, please consider becoming a monthly member at whatever level is comfortable to you at WTA.org/donate. Select the option to give monthly before midnight tonight. You can get one of these snazzy WTA branded buffs and sport it out on trail, and we'll, you know, get lots of love from everybody who sees you. And that's it that we've got so far. So thank you all so much, and happy hiking to everyone.